During coronavirus season 1, when all contracts were canceled and there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty around what the future, at least in the short term, of stage performance was going to look like, I started to think seriously for the first time, not just entertaining it as a fantasy, about leaving the career and going to do something else. I didn't know what then. The first part of that wasn't applying for a job or getting some new certification, anything like that. The first part of that was letting go of the identity of opera singer. And I was running into a ton of resistance around this. I was terrified of it. And when I explored why, I realized it was because I felt very strongly that being an opera singer was where I got my worth from. It was how I got validation from other people. And so, whoa, that's so cool, you're an opera singer? Opera? You don't look like an opera singer. I never would have. Wow, that's so cool, etc., etc. And so I was really afraid of losing that, because I was really terrified that that was all that made me special, all that made me stand out, that it was the most valuable thing that I could give to the world. It wasn't my actual singing, but the novelty. It's so funny looking back at it, the novelty of me being like, I'm an opera singer. I was really scared. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, the opera industry is not to blame for me feeling like that. Not getting cast in certain things, not getting certain opportunities. That's not to blame. Ultimately, I'm the only one to blame for it. The reason that I'm sharing this is because I know that I'm not alone in feeling this way. This sort of, or I'm not alone in how I felt then, which was trapped inside of this identity and trapped inside of this perception of an industry. One of the things that opera singers get told coming up, at least in the opera industrial complex pipeline in the United States, is that if you can do anything else, go do it. And there's a lot of wisdom in that advice. What a lot of singers hear is, if you can do anything else, or if you leave, you have less worth. But the wisdom in there is that if you can do anything else, go do it, because this is a really challenging and really lonely and really frustrating career. One of the things that led me to want to leave, or that gave me more confidence, more certainty in my decision to leave, at least for a time, was that I had gotten to know a handful of singers who were much further along in their career than I was. I was on the path to go where I wanted, but they were there. And what I saw was frustration, and it was frustration and a lack of satisfaction, and ultimately a lack of agency over their own lives. And so this gave me certainty to say, okay, I don't think that's what I want. What I want, what I love, is to sing. What I deeply feel, and feel more so every year with each passing season, is that singing is a part of my purpose here on this earth. Some people believe that we don't have a purpose and that we're just here. But humans are meaning-making creatures, and believing that you have a purpose, first of all, I believe that it's true, but believing that you have a purpose gives you fuel to push through seasons of uncertainty, seasons of frustration, seasons of change, hardship. So I realized that I believe that singing is tied to my purpose, and then I looked at a few experiences that I had, and I said, I don't think that I need to be a part of this complex, as I think about it, to fulfill that purpose or to scratch that itch. When we get that message that we are worth less if we leave, and then you also get all of the fear that comes along with it because of stories that you hear through the grapevine about singers who get blacklisted for ever getting some kind of job outside of singing, then it really puts you in a predicament, and then it keeps you trapped. I just want to share my experience with this, because my goal, and I forgot about this while I was on the journey out of opera, but my original goal was, I am going to take this time while the world is shut down to go and explore something else which I have felt called to do. And I'm going to retool my mind, heal myself, and retool my voice so that I can be more undeniable in my fruit when I show back up into the singing world, however I show back up. Because, man, like I said, I love singing. It is my favorite thing on this planet to do. Sing and lift weights and coach and train people. My favorite things to do. And connect. And singing is, I believe that classical music is the highest form of art, and opera is the highest form of classical music. Singing is divine. Singing heals. A perfect performance, any performance, is a miracle. And what I got was so much exposure when I left the industry, so much exposure to a world outside of opera and musical theater. There were people who had never seen an opera, had never thought about a Fach, people who had never seen a musical, and people who made money and had lives completely outside of this industry, or these industries. And for everybody out there who says that a music degree or a theater degree is a waste, again, here to tell you, you're wrong. You're wrong that, and I understand why people feel this way, you're wrong that your worth comes from you being a part of the opera industrial complex. And you're wrong if you believe that there is no value in a music or a theater degree. What there is value in, the value in those things comes from holding yourself to a professional standard at all times for every class, every rehearsal, and of course every performance. There was a long period of time in my training, all of my BFA musical theater training, where I was not holding myself to that standard. And I regret it. Regret is your conscience telling you that you are off the path. If you do those things, you develop very important meta skills. Most importantly, the ability to learn how to learn, and the skill to do what seems boring, to make boring seem exciting, and to do it consistently, and to find joy in the process. When I started holding myself to a higher standard in my craft, I started to really embrace and lean into those things. I started to love them. Some of my fondest memories and things that I'm most proud of, like learning Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream, in the opera adaptation by Benjamin Britten at Rice, was spending hours, probably days if you added them all up, in the practice room, not just drilling the rhythms and drilling the notes, putting them all together in my head, but making sure that each interval, each phrase was perfectly learned, so that if you woke me up in the middle of the night and gave me just a little bit of lead in, I would be able to go right into that passage perfectly. Perfectly doesn't mean that you get it right, it means that you can't get it wrong. And holding yourself to a standard means that the rhythm is perfect, the intervals are perfect, and the harmonization, how lined up your vowels are, everything is perfect. That skill translates, everywhere. Being on time, being punctual, being prepared. There are so many people outside of the world of performance who do not hold themselves to any of these standards and who don't show up on time. Bare minimum. 5 minutes early, butt in the seat. I look at these things with such wonder and I take pride in them because for so long I was not acting that way. I was not leading myself that way. The skill of being able to make something fresh, even though it's your 1,000th time doing it. Again, if you're treating every rehearsal, every class, every time in the practice room, and then every performance, holding yourself to that standard, that's what it needs to be. It needs to be fresh. It's got to be spontaneous. A life, work, training in the theater, whether stage or musical, or whether opera or musical theater, teaches you that. This came in handily in my career in enterprise sales. This is the 100th time I've done this demo, talked to this persona, etc. 300th time. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be new. You learn how to do that, or hopefully you learn how to do that. The worth does not come from you being an opera singer. The worth comes from the work to become your best self. And that is what holding yourself to a high standard, a standard of excellence, a professional standard in the stage world, teaches you how to do. So, things to think about if you are grappling with any of those, either of those notions, that your worth only comes from you being a part of the opera industrial complex, or that you wasted your time and your money on a meaningless degree. Here to tell you that you did not. I hope you did not. I did not. And I was far from the best in every room that I was in. These skills also showed me how to go from being the best, being not the best in the room that I was in, to towards the upper quartile over time, which is another skill. The skill of progressing, the skill of evolving, the skill of transformation. These all tie together. Anyway, enjoy this beautiful ocean and this beautiful day. I love you. Go forth and be great.